Good afternoon, and thank you all for joining us here today. I'm Marilyn Lands, and I represent House District 10 in Madison County. Recently, I've been meeting with small groups of people in my district to have meaningful conversations about the issues that are impacting their lives. Last Saturday, I met with about a dozen voters for almost 2 hours, and what I learned was that their main concerns and fear are about how recent economic uncertainty will affect their families and our community. The people I met with are smart and informed citizens. They also understood that many of the issues that we discussed that day were federal in nature and beyond the scope or responsibility of our state government. Yet they do still expect their state legislators to take action on the issues we can affect and control. Our caucus is listening to these concerns and taking action by proposing legislation that will focus on protecting Alabama consumers. That's why I'm sponsoring House Bill 476, the Right to Repair Act, which gives people the right to repair their own electronics and software or to use an independent service provider of their choice rather than being forced to use one chosen by the manufacturer. Now, I'm from Huntsville, and we have a bunch of smart, tech-savvy people up there. I'm not one of them, but these smart and tech-savvy people can, like my husband, many times repair their own things. I could never do anything like that. So passing this legislation will strengthen our consumers' rights and allow them to save money. It will end unfair monopolies and increase competition. But just as important, this act will help our environment by extending the lifespan of computers and other electronic products, an issue that is near and dear to my heart. This is especially true for consumers in those cases where it makes much more sense to repair their item than to replace them. That in turn means that there will be a lot less plastic, toxic metals, and other junk filling up Alabama's landfills or polluting our waters. That's a huge win for all of us. Whether it's your laptop, your printer, or maybe even one of your kitchen appliances, most people would rather pay for an inexpensive repair rather than pay a much higher cost to replace the entire device, especially when that is totally unnecessary. Yet in many cases, due to restrictions put on by the manufacturer, consumers are forced to use the repair service chosen by the manufacturer or to replace the item. Often, due to the unnecessary high cost of these repairs, consumers will choose to replace their device, even though a simple repair would have extended its lifespan. That's definitely not fair to our consumers, and it greatly contributes to the amount of electronic garbage that's polluting our environment. As state legislators, we may not be able to fix the global economy, but what we can do is make sure that Alabama consumers are protected. We can protect their options when they purchase expensive electronic devices that just need a simple repair. We can also make sure that we do our part in protecting Alabama's beautiful natural resources by reducing the amount of electronic waste that is filling our landfills, littering our roads, and polluting our waterways. Thank you, and I would like to introduce my friend and colleague, Representative Lawrence from District 69.
Thank you, Rep. Lands. As you mentioned earlier, when we were discussing the conversation you recently had with voters, people feel a great deal of economic uncertainty and frustration right now. But in addition to worrying about higher costs at the grocery store and instability in their economic future, people are also extremely uncertain about how new technologies are changing every aspect of their lives. In fact, because of advancements in artificial intelligence and digital imaging, we do not even know what we see on screens is real anymore. It is actually, whether it's actually a human being we're looking at or a deep fake image generated by a computer. Nowadays, it's becoming impossible to tell. The same is true with audio technology that allows us to use computers to accurately recreate a person's voice and literally put words in their mouth, words they never actually said. As Rep. Lands said earlier, we must take action when and where we can. The people of Alabama are already dealing with vast amounts of uncertainty in regards to our economy, our healthcare system, and the future of our public education system. The last thing we need to be uncertain about is whether the person we are interacting with online, listening to, or watching on television is actually a real person or not. That is why Representative Prince Chestnut is introducing House Bill 516, which prevents someone from using a computer to trick a consumer into thinking that they are interacting with a real human being, when in fact they are interacting with a computer program. This bill would ensure that if a deep fake is being used, that consumers are explicitly aware of its nature. If the person responsible for creating the deep fake does not make a disclosure to the consumer, then they will be found guilty of engaging in deceptive trade practices. This would include chat boxes, artificial intelligence agents, avatars, or any other computer technology using graphics, text, video, or audio intended to mislead or deceive a reasonable person believe that they are communicating or interacting with a real human. These technologies continue to improve. It is vital for us to be able to know who and what we are interacting with, whether it's getting help online, talking to someone or someone on the phone, or even watching a political commercial. The point is, the consumer have a right to know the truth. They have the right to know who, what they are talking to when purchasing a product or service or interacting with customer service. Most importantly, consumers have the right not to be misled, tricked, and the right to be free from deceptive trade practices. This bill is not only good for consumers, but it will also help diminish the amount of misinformation that seems to be flooding social media. When it comes to new technologies, it is important for us to be proactive, cautious, and vigilant. That's how we can keep Alabama citizens safe from new types of deceptive practices, help stop the spread of disinformation, and regulate new technologies before it is too late. Thank you so much. And now I would like to introduce my colleague, Representative Kenyatte Hassell of Montgomery, who represents House District 78.
Thank you, Rep. Lawrence. I'll start by saying that you're absolutely correct about these deep fakes that seem to be popping up all over social media. It reminds me of that old saying that goes, who are you going to believe? Me or your lying eyes? When it comes to the internet, a lot of us aren't too sure if we should believe it, what we see anymore, or I'm grateful that your bill will help address some of that uncertainty. As I talk to people in my community who are also feeling helpless in the face of rising costs and uncertainty, they really just want to know that they are being treated fairly, honestly, and that they are getting value for what they're working hard and paid for. How many times have you purchased something and later when it breaks, it doesn't apply to a particular situation, or that the refund of replacing that item is less than what it cost? Too often, these important details are not included in the advertising and instead are buried deep in the fine print and legal jargons. That's why I'm here to voice my strong support of HB 466, sponsored by Representative McCampbell, which will require that when advertising a service contract, the advertisement must disclose if the refund amount would be less than the provider cost to repair or replace the item. The bill also ensures that any limitation, exceptions, or exclusions in the service contract must be disclosed. Doing this means that everything is spelled out clearly in the advertisement and not a surprise that buried in the fine print of that contract. This is another step we can take to protect Alabama consumers and get rid of some of the uncertainties that feel when they purchase a service contract. Now, they can make an informed decision based on the facts with no surprises. For most folks right now, every penny counts. When we buy something, we expect it to work. If it doesn't, and we invest in a service contract, we expect the item to be fixed or replaced as advertised and promised. People have the right to know if they're buying something, they are given the option to purchase a service contract, that the contract is actually worth the paper it's printed on. That's fundamental consumers protection, and that's how we can help ease some of the economic uncertainty that's out there. Far too long, we allow big corporations to call the shots. And when it comes to service contracts, it seems increasingly like the little guy is getting the short end of the stick, or having to pay more for less and less service. This bill basically keep providers honest and make it easier for Alabama consumers to make an informed choice. Especially true as we pay higher prices due to Trump tariffs and taxes in an unstable economy where every penny counts. Thank you. At this time, we'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
I do have a question. Representative Land, this is pointed toward what your conversation was. But Representative Hassell, feel free to jump in too. I know you were saying that this is good for the good for the environment and helping to make sure items such as plastics and other things don't get caught up in the environment. But as I just kind of stumped and said, the environment, but also the economy too, because won't this allow people who have businesses that may tend toward repairing items like that, especially in the state of Alabama, won't they benefit, or can they benefit from?
It absolutely benefits small businesses, and if you wanna call the fella that does, repair washer and dryers, to fix your dryer, then you'll certainly be able to do that. So it helps our small businesses, it helps those small repair shops, and it helps the consumer. So I think it's a win-win all around.
Rep. Lands, also for you on your bill, the right to repair bill, would this be pretty broad in that it would apply to, essentially all goods coming into the state, like iPhone, for example, or, even John Deere tractors, which are notoriously tough on those right to repair laws?
So I think it probably does, as it's written now. I didn't envision it that way when I first introduced the bill, but now that I'm hearing from all these people, so basically anything that has electronic components. So I have heard from the automotive industry, I have heard from Apple, from Amazon. So I'm working with a lot of folks. If you're coming to the public hearing next, I'm sure we'll be hearing from them, and I'm looking forward to being able to work out some of the nuances. And some of them make a lot of sense to me, like if you choose to repair it yourself, it's no longer covered under warranty. Well, yes, of course, that should be the way it is. So I think there's a lot of details that we're gonna work out, but I think it does provide broad coverage. And there's been a lot of support for it. Nationally, these laws have passed in other states, and some are moving through the legislatures right now. Farmers, small business people, all sorts of industries, including Consumer Reports, have endorsed these kinds of bills.
Thank you.
How much opposition have you faced on it, though? I'm sure that due to the amount of money that companies probably make off of service contracts and things like that, have they expressed any opposition, or have you been able to work out any kind of compromise with them if necessary?
Nobody has outright opposed the bill. They have said that they oppose it unless we can come to an amendment, and so we're working through those right now.
Got it. Okay.
Neither bill has hit the floor as of yet, though, right?
Right.
No.
Committee, I'm sorry.
That mine's in committee next, so I'm going there next at 1:30, but I'm last on the last item in judicial.
That's in judiciary?
Yes. And there's a public hearing there this afternoon, so,
Let's see.
yeah.
Well,
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Actually, if I could ask one more for Rep. Hassell. Certainly I'm sure your constituents appreciate House Democrats always introducing proposals and legislation, but at this point, I don't know the exact number of days, maybe 9 or 7 legislative days left. How are y'all gonna work together to, really launch an effort to get some of these across the finish line? And even if they can't, I guess what is the broad strategy to have these bills make an impact, especially so late in the session?
getting everybody involved. You know, just getting the perspective of, you know, our colleagues on both sides of the aisle to come up with some type of compromise and common ground to get them passed. And we want to do that in committee, well, before committee. You know, I meet with legislators, our colleagues, before it reach committee to have a discussion. They want to bring an amendment, you know, for me to agree with that amendment or disagree with that amendment. But if we come to some type of compromise, I believe we can get a bipartisan support to get the stuff passed in 8 days.
Real quick, have y'all up on the podium. Yesterday, there was a comment from a senator about certain bills not getting a fair shake down in the House, and as a result, he might be inclined to slow the process down upstairs in the Senate. The Speaker came out and said, well, that's not the case. We have been doing a lion's share of work to get bills passed, House and Senate. So please don't do that, especially this late in the game. Do you have any reaction to that comment from Senator Jones about possibly slowing things down?
Well, I'll say this, there's a lot on our leadership. I feel like we have been, you know, moving a lot of Senate bills. It might not be to his, you know, to his discretion, but we have brought a lot of Senate bills out that we voted on in the House. And I do believe that the Speaker of the House has been very balanced in that case. So I hope that whatever his issue is, that it can be rectified through leadership, so we can get a lot of legislation passed our House bill get passed in the Senate, and our Senate Senate gets passed in the House.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
All right, thank you.